Today, I'm going to be talking about the integration of the associate advisor, often called the junior advisor or lead advisor, onto a team. This is one of the most popular topics I talk about, and understandably so. Advisors always have challenges with human capital, but especially around the associate advisor hire. And my objective in this conversation today, and all the videos that I post, is to give you enough information and insight to help you shift and shape behaviors and belief systems. So I hope that some of what I share with you helps you reframe the way you're thinking about the associate advisor on your team or future associate advisor that you're thinking of bringing on. Okay, so my comments are going to be from the perspective of things that I've seen advisors and leaders of organizations do wrong or maybe not do optimally. The first thing I'll say is I think as an industry, we need to change the way in which we think about who that associate advisor hire is. Most of the time, when a leader of an organization, of an advisory organization, is struggling with that associate advisor hire, it's because the advisor is usually running a solopreneur practice where they are the primary revenue generator. And they've either reached a point where they've hit capacity in the business, or they've reached a point where they're now approaching rather the sunsetting stage of their career and are scrambling to find the replacement of them. The reason why I see the associate advisor fail, and by fail, I don't necessarily mean the associate advisor gets hired. What I mean by fail is the associate advisor isn't succeeding in the way the advisor originally imagined him or her to succeed. Most of the time, why that happens is because the advisor is focused on finding a replacement for them and their revenue generating skills and abilities. And if the junior advisor or associate advisor comes on and doesn't hunt, rainmake, gather assets, sell the way senior advisor did when he or she started in the business, it's a big disappointment for the leader advisor of the organization. And so I want to start by saying one really important thing. I would love advisors to really take some more time before they post for that role or hire for the associate advisor to think about the intent and the objective with that hire. The truth is, if you are 5 years out, theoretically, from retiring, you don't have time to fully bring in a person that you could groom and develop and whom you can transfer trust to from your client relationships to them. And so in that case, if you're looking to fill that continuity gap, your best bet is not necessarily to bring on an associate advisor, but to merge with another team or look to be bought out by a bigger organization with greater operational efficiencies. The other thing I'll say is if you do have that time, 7 or more years, to really integrate the next gen advisor, and you are a firm that doesn't have a challenge with acquiring new business, especially organically, then the important thing is not necessarily advisors for you to think about replacing your revenue generating abilities, but rather bringing somebody on who has the ability to retain the revenue that you have produced. And so, in short, what I mean by these comments is that I see advisors so focused and obsessed with finding the next unicorn, the next revenue generator. And what I ask advisors to think about, if you have the ability to still generate business, bring in referrals, drive brand recognition and awareness in your community through your own achievements and career and technical competencies, then why are you looking for the next you? We need to find a way to create more capacity and leverage for the you, because what I'll tell you folks is, especially if you're looking at a next gen associate advisor, the next gen, and this is a generalized statement, is not as, and it's to no fault of their own, not as adept to creating from scratch. And my older generation advisor who's listening will understand what I mean by that. The idea of cold calling, of grinding it out, of working on a commission only, rep structure, those are things of the past. And so finding that hunter, that grinder, is much more difficult than it was decades ago. So it's easier to find the person who is the relationship manager, the revenue retainer, the person who can create capacity for you than it is to find that former. And I think it's more of a valuable role and a role that can generate more leverage and more capacity for the organization. So start to think differently about the type of person and the type of role that you want. And there's nothing wrong with being, I would say, the majority revenue generator on your team, as long as you have people behind you who can manage relationships and not just handle service requests, but manage relationships end to end. So that's the first thing. And the best practice and action item for you there, folks, is if you're about to hire an associate advisor, rethink that job description. And if you have somebody on your team now who's quote unquote failing or not hitting expectations, consider reframing the way in which you've structured their role in the organization. So that's the first thing. The second thing I'll say, and this dovetails to the first comments, the way we set expectations for this new associate hire oftentimes is we don't do a great job of it up front. We are so focused as an industry on job descriptions and tasks and posting ads, very tactical things, that we don't spend enough time up front setting expectations with any new hire about how we define success for them. And so it's really important, and here's the best practice and action items, for you to shift from task-oriented job descriptions where we're describing for people what they're going to be doing on a daily basis, and instead focusing on objectives and key results. How are we articulating to this person what we're trying to achieve with having them on the team? And then how are they going to know, especially in the first 30, 60, 90 days, they're achieving those results? And so instead of a traditional job description, which, by the way, I'm not saying you never can post a new job description anymore, but what I'm saying is we need a document where we run through with new hires, especially revenue generating new hires, how we define success. For example, if you have an associate advisor on your team, an objective for them would be to create more capacity for you, the senior advisor, to generate new business. That's an objective that they need to be completely focused and intentionally focused on day in and day out. Now, how are they going to know they're achieving that? Well, perhaps you have a marker of 5 more client or prospect meetings on your calendar are added every single week. You no longer are the primary point of contact for 100 clients or 60 clients in your book of business. Tangible key results that the new hire can work to and that you together can track with them. Oftentimes, the only results we put on the table for the associate advisor is bring in 20 million in net new assets in the first year. And oftentimes those results are not entirely are not aligned with the way in which the associate advisor is going to think about achieving success. And sometimes they're just plain unrealistic. So better setting expectations, and the action item here is creating objectives and key results that are more aligned with what you want the associate advisor to do and align with the results of the organization. Remember, we always want, and I'll talk about this a lot in future videos, we always want team members, especially revenue generating team members, tied to and intentionally focused on the bigger results that we're trying to achieve as an organization. The last thing I'll say is oftentimes we are so focused on structuring these associate advisor contracts. The way rep contracts have been structured in our business since the beginning of the industry, we're very focused on tying compensation to results, meaning sales, new AUM, new clients. And if we think about how the next generation, especially of advisor and client relationship manager and junior advisor succeeds, we need those results to be much more tied to results that'll help drive behavior. And so what I'm suggesting here, and this is especially true if you're looking to attract female associate advisors, advisors that don't fit the traditional profile that we think of when we think of a financial advisor, consider structuring the actual contract and the compensation and incentives differently. There is nothing wrong with, especially if you're in a broker dealer, folks, with bringing on an associate advisor who is not a rep, how your firm defines rep, but who is on a salary plus bonus structure where the bonus is tied to a percentage of salary, but underpinned by key metrics and performance indicators that you can track together as a team, such as total net new business brought in on a quarter, retention percentages, etc. The key here is that you're creating more stability for the hire, and you're also creating a compensation and incentive structure that you control as the business owner. Oftentimes, I'll see advisors want to bring in an associate advisor and feeling so desperate to bring in that person that they will say, you know what, we're going to pay you a percentage of all new business that comes in, and that'll be your compensation or your draw or whatever it is. And I like to see the advisor and leader of the organization have much more control over what that bonus is, much more transparency over what the total comp structure might look like for that associate advisor. It makes the leader feel better about knowing the total expense that they may have to make, how that ties to the ROI of the hire. And it also makes the associate advisor feel comfortable sometimes about the compensation package. Okay, so those were my 3 big sort of insights and best practices. The first, we need to think differently about the way we're actually framing up the job and what we actually need the person for. Secondly, we need to make sure we set expectations properly by articulating the objectives and key results that we want the person to achieve. And then finally, we need to think differently about the way we compensate this hire and start to modernize the way we present the compensation and incentive package to the associate advisor. Okay, folks, I hope that was helpful. I've got a lot more coming for you. If you have any questions or feedback or thoughts, you can always reach out to me at pphillips@journeysw.com. Thank you. Bye.